There's a lot to like about the Fnatic Streak ATLP gaming keyboard. Thank you to Fnatic for sending it to me for a review. The Streak ATLP feels very premium. It's cool to the touch due to the aluminium top plate and the high quality textured plastic on the base of the board. These materials add sensory qualities to the experience, giving a sense of durability, and it gives you a sort of tactile connection with a solid and well-crafted, luxurious object. This is a wired keyboard, and I enjoy its stock, braided and coiled USB-A to USB-C cable. I've not had a keyboard with a coiled cable before, but it is aesthetically pleasing and provides the function of tidy cable management on the desk. The media knobs and media key configuration is a brilliant feature too. The knob is really smooth, but you can feel some faint steps as you twist it to turn your media up or down in volume. You can also actuate the knob to mute the media, and then the normal media keys are to the left of the knob, and that's your pause, play, skip left or right functions. It's super convenient to have these keys when I'm listening to music while I work. You know, it's the first knob I've experienced on a keyboard, and I can now understand why people like knobs so much. Get your mind out the gutter, you. The board comes with double-shot PPT keycaps which feel nicely textured. They have a matte texture to the surface, so they provide a little bit of tactile feedback to your fingers, which also provides a bit of grip to the keys. They also look great on the board. You know, they're elevated slightly from the base of the board, and they kind of look like little floating islands above the surface of the board. It's a really cool aesthetic. The keycaps are also mounted firmly with little to no wobble, and the switches have quite wide stems in them, which provide some stability to the caps. And the stabilisers and switches are pre-lubed, and they feel good to use straight out of the box. The board uses a linear switch with 3.2mm travel and 1mm actuation, which means the keys don't have to travel far to register the input. But you can bottom out the switch really easily if you are a heavy presser like me. The switches bounce back nicely after a full press, feeling nice and responsive both when typing and when gaming. I like the way they sound too. You know, it's not the creamiest or the thockiest switch I've heard, but it's not at all rattly or echoey, and it's also not too loud in comparison to other keyboards I own. The sound is dampened through the use of pour-on insulation foam, and that element seems to have worked really nicely. So don't panic, we will do a sound test later in the video. I should also mention this board is also low profile, which means it's not at such a sharp angle and maybe therefore slightly less taxing on the wrists. I have it propped up on the feet though, and its angle felt pretty normal to me. It didn't feel like I had an adjustment period or anything like that. It's maybe just a little lower than my Wooting by comparison. Another reason why I like this board is because the 10 keyless button format is so much more convenient than a 60% board. I didn't realise how much I've missed these additional keys, but it's been so refreshing going back to a 10 keyless board after using a 60% board for about 8 months now. Of course, this is just my personal preference, and I understand some people need to save space with a smaller keyboard, so just bear that in mind. When I turned this keyboard on, I was met with some extremely impressive RGB, and I'm not normally an RGB enjoyer, but this was pretty cool to see. The small double-shot PPT keycaps let the RGB light flood out from the base of the board, and it was a really powerful effect. I now have the board set to the preset lilac or lavender colour, which I think is pretty nice and suits the calm mood I prefer to have while typing at my desk. There's lots of other cool options you can choose from the presets, and I'll just show a couple of those as I talk now on screen. There's a performance mode you can enter. You just switch it on and off, which disables the Windows key, so you don't make any accidental Windows key presses in-game. You can toggle this mode by pressing the function and escape keys together, and it will turn the keyboard orange to show you that it is in fact in that performance mode. Once you've chosen your favorite mode, you can make it more or less bright by hitting function key up or down on the arrows, and this is useful because the RGB is quite bright at full brightness, and it's nice to have the option to turn it down on the keyboard if you want to. The board costs £125 here in the UK, and when you consider the luxurious build quality, the high performance stock configuration with its 1K polling rate and low actuation points, I think that's a pretty good deal, honestly. It also comes with a 2-year warranty to give you that peace of mind, and it's a real hassle-free plug-and-play keyboard. I think it's important to address the elephant in the room, and this isn't a Hall effect keyboard with rapid trigger and custom per-key actuation points. That could be a deal breaker for a lot of you watching this, but I do think there are a lot of gamers that don't want the fuss of a Hall effect keyboard And to bring that to life, I'll talk about my experience with the Wooting 60HE. So when my Wooting arrived, I had to install all of the keycaps myself, and this wasn't a huge issue of course, but it did take me some time to do. My Wooting also thought it was a gamepad at the start, which meant I couldn't use a controller with my Wooting plugged in, and this took a few minutes to troubleshoot and fix. I then had to install the firmware to the board, and then I was able to configure it to my liking. Configuring the custom per key actuation took me a good hour or two of testing and adjusting in the Apex Legends firing range, at which point I got so frustrated with setting this board up, I ended up just copying someone else's profile and calling it a day. My key point here is that Hall effect boards take a lot of time to set up and configure correctly. They can be quite frustrating to deal with if you aren't very good with customizing and tinkering your peripherals functionality. In contrast, the Fnatic Streak 80LP keyboard comes out of the box with a responsive, premium and well-performing configuration. You can literally pull it out of the box, plug it into your computer and then play with it. I don't want to downplay how good Hall effect boards are though, because they are more responsive, but the Streak feels fast enough for me, so much so that I've not looked at my Wooting again since the Streak has arrived. So if it was such a huge nerf to my gameplay, I wouldn't have used it for the last few weeks as my daily driver for work and for play. So we're going to go through the sound test now, and at the end of the sound test, I'll just end the video. And while the keys are tapping, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I have just received another Hall effect board from Akko. I will review that board in the next couple of weeks, and we'll see how the Akko board compares to the Fnatic Streak 80LP in due course. Enjoy the sound test, and I'll see you soon.